Just because I'm a transmigrator who can reincarnate infinitely, my wife insists on forcing me to give her lover my heart. Otherwise, she'll divorce me and prevent me from ever completing the task of winning her heart. Just as I was about to refuse, my biological daughter, whom I've taken care of for 8 years, kicked my leg and said, "If you don't give uncle your heart, I won't acknowledge you as my dad." When I was reborn, I ended up with a new wife. They went crazy looking for me. One ended up in a mental hospital, calling everyone husband. The other ended up in an orphanage, calling everyone dad. Chapter 1. I agreed to donate my heart to Makoto. After waiting in the cold hallway for 3 hours, I gave in. It was December, and the temperature outside was below 5 degrees Celsius. I was only wearing a thin home outfit, my lips turning pale from the cold. Willow opened the door and looked down at me, asking, "Are you sure you've thought this through?" I gave a faint smile, realizing that no matter what I did, I could never warm Willow's heart. I was a task-oriented person, and when I first received the mission, I knew Willow had someone she loved. After failing 2 missions in a row, I followed the system's advice and switched identities to become Makoto's twin brother. With a face that resembled Makoto's, I successfully married Willow. 8 years of marriage, and I stayed by Willow's side without fail. Eventually, her affection for me reached 99%. I thought I had succeeded, until Makoto returned to the country and needed heart surgery. Willow wanted my heart. She said indifferently, "I know you're an outsider. You won't really die before the task is complete. It's just a heart. When this body dies, you can change identities and return to my side." At that moment, everything clicked. Why her affection was stuck at 99%, and how the last 1% was always out of reach. She was using this to threaten me. When I refused, Willow's affection dropped by a point. In the end, she honestly said, "Why bother? Even if you don't agree, you can't leave me. You have the system's mission. Until it's complete, you will have to keep pleasing me. If you just agree obediently, I'll feel sorry for you, and your affection will increase. Why not be smarter about this? Be smarter." I laughed through my tears. Willow was indeed very smart. With an IQ of 153, she became a top heart surgeon at a young age. So, even in love, she measured everything in numbers, controlling everything like an experiment, using the slightest hope to force me to compromise time and time again. At that moment, I understood. Willow didn't dislike me. She was just too cold-blooded, too heartless. In the end, even my biological daughter, whom I had cared for 8 years, said the same thing as her mother, "If you don't agree to give Uncle Makoto your heart, I won't recognize you as my dad." Their hearts were like iron lumps that could never be warmed. Since that was the case, I didn't want to waste another 8 years. I said, "I've made up my mind. Since you want my heart, I'll give it to you." At the same time, I silently spoke to the system in my mind, "After this body dies, please just give me a new target for my task." The system asked, "Host, are you sure you want to change your task target? After changing, you and Willow will have no further connection, but you will be reborn with a new identity." I replied, "Yes." No further connection was fine. I didn't want to continue pursuing Willow. Willow showed a hint of surprise. She didn't expect me to agree so quickly. She furrowed her brow, sensing something was off with me, but didn't think too much about it. She said, "Come in and rest." As soon as I entered, my daughter Maria threw something at me and said from above, "Bad dad, fix this." On the table was a car model. From the looks of it, it was something that belonged to Makoto's son. I couldn't help but sneer. This mother-daughter pair was truly devoted, even loving his son as if he were their own. Maria, seeing me smile, furrowed her brow uncomfortably and said, "I want it fixed by tomorrow. Fix it now." I coldly turned my gaze away and said, "I won't do it." This car model was complicated, and fixing it wouldn't be done in a day. I had just spent 3 hours outside in the cold. My hands and feet numb and stiff. I could barely move. But Maria got angry. She shouted, "Why are you so useless? You can't do anything. I already promised Lucas, and I need a good one for him by tomorrow. You have to do it today." Chapter 2. In a cold voice, I said, "Maria, I'm your dad, not your servant." I rarely got strict with Maria. Maria inherited her mother's high intelligence, and I didn't have to worry about her studies at all. Most of the time, my focus was on Maria's daily life, everything from her clothing and food to her health. I took care of it all with meticulous attention. But despite all this, Maria was always dissatisfied with me. She had grown accustomed to my sacrifices, and now, she was demanding more, expecting me to do anything for her without question, as though it was her right. In the past, I tolerated it, but now, I couldn't anymore. Willow came out of the kitchen and told Maria, "Let your dad rest tonight. We can do it tomorrow." At that moment, Willow seemed to return to her role as a good wife. She put a hot water bottle in my arms and tried to hold my hand, saying, "Why get angry with a child?" I stepped back slightly, avoiding her touch. I spoke calmly, "I'm not angry with her." I thought to myself, "I'm just informing Maria that I no longer plan to be her dad." Willow's hand froze in midair. Before pulling back, there was a sense of awkward silence, a feeling of lostness she couldn't quite place. Willow frowned. She had never seen me like this. In her mind, I should have exploded in anger, only to relent in the end. But now, I had skipped all the steps and calmly accepted everything, as if I didn't care at all. She said, "Let's eat first." Willow changed the subject and brought out a bowl of fish soup from the kitchen. She handed me the first bowl. "Drink some soup to warm up." "Isn't fish soup your favorite?" I looked at the milky white soup, with tender fish meat and a rich broth. It was one of Willow's best dishes. But a bitterness rose in my heart. I said, "Makoto is the one who likes fish soup." Willow's movements paused for a moment, before she casually replied, "You're brothers. Your preferences should be similar." I gave a self-deprecating smile. Makoto and I had completely different tastes, but Willow only remembered Makoto's. Her mind, which usually only kept track of experimental data, had dedicated a space to remember everything about Makoto. I lowered my head and said, "I hate fish soup. I hate the fishy smell in it. It's unpleasant. Disgusting. Drinking it feels like drinking swill." Willow's actions didn't stop. She just calmly said, "Eating fish is good for your heart." I tightened my grip on the spoon. So, this was what she cared about. I didn't say anything more, forcing myself to drink the entire bowl of fish soup before heading to my room. We had been married for 8 years, but Willow and I slept in separate rooms. She had said her sleep was light, so I volunteered to sleep in the guest room, and that's how it had been for 8 years. It was probably because she didn't want to share a bed with me, but now, I didn't care anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling groggy, not knowing when I had fallen asleep. There was a loud knocking on the door. "Dad, bad Dad, why aren't you up yet to make my breakfast?" My body felt heavy, and I struggled to get up, realizing it was already 8 o'clock. Maria had school at 7:30, and I usually woke up before 6 to prepare breakfast and the things she needed for school. I opened the door, and Maria kicked my calf. At 7 years old, she had some strength, and the pain made me step back a few paces. I coldly asked, "Where's your mom?" The living room was empty, and there was no one in the room either. Maria casually said, "Mom went out. Her work is so important. Unlike you, a low-level worker who's too lazy to get up and make me breakfast." Willow was indeed busy. As one of the top heart surgeons in City A, she worked tirelessly, often neglecting Maria. When Maria was sick as a child, I took her to the hospital alone, running up and down, sweating profusely. In the end, Maria recovered, but I got sick. When Willow found out, she coldly said, "Next time, remember to call the nanny." "Call the nanny," she said lightly. She had never taken care of a child, so of course, she didn't understand how worrying it was when a child was ill. A nanny could only take care of errands, but how could I trust a nanny to provide the companionship and care a sick child needed? Willow didn't understand this. She only blamed me for not handling things well. Now, Maria felt the same. She said, "Uncle Makoto is right. You're just a lazy, useless man, not a good dad at all." Children speak without thinking, but their words hurt the most. I looked at her, this child I had raised with my own hands. She used to hug my neck when she was little, calling me dad and swearing she would be my little cotton-padded jacket for life. But now, this was what she had become. I laughed bitterly. "Maria, can't you see I'm sick?" Maria then noticed the pallor on my face. She frowned, her expression as cold as Willow's, with no concern, only displeasure. She said, "So stupid. Why did you have to get sick at this time? A person who can't even manage their health doesn't deserve to be my dad." With that, Maria turned and left with her backpack. I stood at the door, my head spinning, slowly leaning against the door frame and crouching down. The door slammed shut. I stood there, bitterly thinking, soon, I won't be your dad anymore. Chapter 3. I hastily swallowed 2 cold medicine pills and put on a mask before heading out. The winter in December was truly cold. I took a taxi to the building where my company was located. The employees in my team were already waiting for me. One of them said, "Mr. Wong, you're finally here. The final design for the Wong degree collection hasn't been decided yet. We're waiting for your approval." I took the design draft from the assistant. I am an art student. After graduation, I worked as a designer for a clothing company, and a few years later, I started my own clothing brand. Although my company isn't exactly huge, it's the result of all my hard work. I pay particular attention to the quality of design drafts. But this time, some of the drafts were very poorly done. I frowned and said, "How did the company hire interns with such low standards?" The assistant looked uncomfortable, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Well, these are from your brother, Makoto." No wonder. 3 months ago, Makoto returned to China after divorcing his wife and bringing his son with him. Unable to find a suitable job, my parents asked me to give Makoto a director position at my company. Makoto's skill level, he couldn't even meet the standards of an intern, let alone a director. Naturally, I refused, But I couldn't fight off the pressure from the family. They kept pushing and even came to the company to cause trouble. In the end, I gave in and arranged for him to have a designer position. Who would have thought he would submit something like this? I immediately had those drafts removed and told the assistant, from now on, just make it look like you're doing something with his submissions. Don't bring them to me. I found them unbearable to look at. Then, I took out the design drafts I had modified over the past few days from my bag and said, take these and discuss them with a few designers. See if they're good enough for the final collection. The assistant's eyes lit up as soon as he saw them. He said, Mr. Wang, you're too humble. This will definitely work. Everyone knows your level. I just took it as flattery and turned to handle the rest of my work. After the heart surgery, this body was doomed to die. After my death, the system would give me a new body, and this company likely wouldn't survive either. After years of hard work, I planned to pass the company on to my best friend, but before that, I wanted to finish the remaining work and stay on duty until the very end. I worked until 2 in the afternoon, when my stomach started growling, and I realized I hadn't eaten all day. Just as I was about to head out for lunch, the office door was pushed open. It was my father, looking travel-worn. When he saw me, his gaze was sharp, and he said, "You're really here." With that, he walked over quickly and gave a short, decisive order. "Come with me to the hospital." I didn't move. This man was my biological father, the one who had personally kicked me out of the Wang family. Both Makoto and I were sons of the Wang family, but my parents only cared about Makoto. In their hearts, Makoto was the obedient, sensible son, while I was the treacherous villain. So, when Makoto falsely accused me of stealing, no matter how I protested, it was useless. Even when Makoto set me up and ruined my reputation, dragging the Wang family down with me, they never suspected him. They blamed everything on me. Back then, it was he who personally stood in front of countless media cameras and declared, "The Wang family only has one son, and that's Makoto. George has been expelled from the Wang family, and everything he says and does is not related to the Wang family." Everyone laughed at me as the abandoned family member, and now, he stood in front of me again. He said, "Makoto's condition has worsened. You need to go give him a blood transfusion." The office fell deathly silent. I wanted to ask, after 7 years, how he could still stand here so boldly and say those words. I asked, "What does his life or death have to do with me?" My father's face turned ashen. He replied, "He's your real brother." I bitterly smiled and said, "Did you forget? 7 years ago, you kicked me out of the Wang family. I have no family left, no brother." His face froze. The words he had said years ago had finally come back to haunt him like a boomerang. The man who had always been proud now lowered his head and pleaded, "The doctors say Makoto's heart function is very poor, and he's anemic. Only a blood transfusion can keep him alive. We still haven't found a heart donor. You must come with me and donate your blood." Looking at him, I felt an even greater bitterness rise in my chest. I had never seen my father beg like this before. Makoto truly was the apple of his eye. And it wasn't just him, was it? Willow and Maria, didn't they treat Makoto as their belief as well? I smiled bitterly and said, "Fine, I'll agree, but I have one condition. I want all the shares of the Wang family that Makoto holds." My father's eyes turned cold. He said, "George, don't get greedy." I replied, "That's my condition. If you don't agree, then fine." After a long silence, my father finally gave in. He dragged me to the hospital without allowing me any time to rest. I felt faint from hunger after a whole day without food, without any time to recuperate. My father pulled me straight to the blood donation room. The nurse saw my pale face and kindly asked, "Are you experiencing low blood sugar? Do you need to rest or have something to eat?" But my father impatiently urged, "Hurry up." This private hospital was one my father had invested in, and his word was law here. The nurse, frightened, didn't dare to delay and quickly prepared the blood collection equipment. As soon as the needle was inserted, I felt dizzy. A severe cold, coupled with a whole day without food and the low blood sugar, caused me to struggle to breathe. My head uncontrollably tilted to the side. The nurse was horrified and cried out, "We can't continue. If we draw more, something will happen." My father's face turned dark. He was worried not because I might die, but because without me, Makoto would have no blood. He said, "Fine. Stop here. Use what you have." I was supported into the rest room. I lost consciousness completely, and in a daze. I didn't know how much time passed. A woman barged in, slapped me hard across the face, and cried, "It's all your fault. What are you pretending to faint for? What use is this little bit of blood?" The pain woke me up, and I saw my mother's swollen face, her hands grabbing me, punching me, crying as she shouted, "Why did I have you two in the first place? If only it was just Makoto. You're a curse. Even when you were in my womb, you took away Makoto's nutrition, causing him to be born with heart disease. Now when we need your blood, you're here acting like you're dying. Do you want your brother to die that much?" Her cruel words pierced deep into my heart. I, who had never cried, now felt cold tears fall from my eyes. I had heard these words countless times since childhood. Just because Makoto and I were twins. Just because Makoto had heart problems. Everything was my fault. I took the life resources that should have belonged to him. No one in the family loved me. My wife and daughter hated me. From the moment I was born, I carried the original sin. Chapter 4. Slaps landed on my face one after another until a hand stopped them. It was my father who intervened and blocked my mother. Seeing Willow, my father was also surprised and asked, "Why are you here?" Willow replied, "I heard that Makoto's condition is worsening, so I came to check on him. Don't worry too much. I've already found a heart donor for him, and he will recover soon." My mother, who had been crying just moments ago, immediately stopped. She asked, "Really? Where did the heart come from? Is Makoto really going to be okay?" Willow reassured her again, "I have some other resources. I'll personally perform the surgery, and Makoto will definitely be fine." Upon hearing that Willow would personally conduct the surgery, my heart trembled. Then, a bitter laugh followed. After my mother left, Willow, sensing the intense heat in my body, helped me to the hospital room. She thoughtfully prepared a blanket and hot water. I lay on the bed, and Willow took my temperature. When she saw the thermometer reading 41 degrees Celsius, she frowned and said, "You have a fever. Why didn't you call me?" I curled up and sarcastically replied, "The brilliant director Lu, the master healer, probably didn't expect that staying in a corridor with a temperature of under 5 degrees Celsius for 3 hours could make someone sick. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was that she didn't care about me. The only thing she was ever concerned about was the heart inside my body." Willow paused, then seemed to feel guilty and murmured, "I'm sorry." Her voice was so soft I thought I might have imagined it. She sat beside the bed and took my burning hand, whispering, "I'm sorry. I promise that after this, I'll be with you, and we'll live together properly. Whatever conditions you want, I'll meet them. I'll love you properly." But I didn't look at her. I silently withdrew my hand. After an entire night of 4 drips, I began to feel better the next day. Willow didn't return to her hospital job but stayed by my side, bringing over some medicine. The medicine was bitter, and I frowned as I swallowed it. Willow placed a glass of orange juice in front of me. I asked, "How long will it take for me to recover?" Willow answered, "Generally, a regular cold takes about 7 days to heal. You have a high fever, so it might take around 10 days. I asked again, "Will this delay the heart transplant for Makoto?" I said it so casually, as though it was a trivial matter. Willow looked at me with a complicated expression, suddenly feeling like she didn't understand me anymore. She didn't respond immediately. I continued, "Even if I'm not healed, it won't matter, right? After all, once the heart is removed, I won't be alive anyway. Does a cold matter?" My words were too cruel, yet I said them with unnerving calmness, like a cold blade. For some reason, Willow seemed distressed. She insisted, "I'll make sure you are healthy enough to undergo surgery, healthy enough to go under the knife, only to never come back." I didn't understand her insistence. Outside the room, my father entered, holding a stock transfer agreement. He threw the file heavily onto my face and coldly said, "As you wished. All of Makoto's shares now belong to you." This document included both mine and Makoto's shares, totaling 20%. It was enough to secure a seat in the boardroom. I was satisfied and signed it. Once everyone left, I called my lawyer and said, "I'd like to arrange my inheritance." My lawyer, accompanied by my friend Kevin, came in. Upon seeing my pale, gaunt appearance, Kevin's anger flared. He cursed, "Bastards, how could they treat you like this? I'm going to make them pay." I stopped him. During my time trying to win Willow's heart, I didn't encounter many good people, but Kevin was an exception. He always stood by my side, no matter what I faced. He was the first one to offer help. Kevin was also, apart from Willow, the second person to know about the system I was using. At this point, I explained to Kevin that I was planning to change my target. He said, "So, you're finally going to get rid of Willow, that scumbag?" I nodded. Kevin stood up excitedly. "That's great. The system is finally doing something useful. You should have dumped Willow earlier. Let her suffer." I couldn't help but laugh at him, then turned to the lawyer and said, "I want to leave all of my shares in Wong Corp, the company, and some cash to Kevin. The rest, I want to donate to children in the mountains." The lawyer wasn't surprised by this but still asked according to protocol, "And what about your family?" I answered, "Not a penny for them." Kevin's eyes reddened as he said, "I'll hold on to everything for you for now. When you return with your new identity, I'll give everything back. You must come back." I nodded. Just then, Willow walked in and asked, "What do you mean by come back?" Her gaze was sharp. I wasn't sure how much she had overheard, so I hurriedly explained. "I told Kevin that when I recover, I'll be traveling abroad for a while, and he asked me to bring something back for him." Willow didn't show much expression but scrutinized me for a moment before returning to her usual demeanor. She said, "Don't forget to go for the checkup later." I sighed in relief. Willow personally took me for the checkup. I knew this checkup was to see if my heart met the requirements for donation. After the checkup, I happened to run into Makoto. He was sitting in a wheelchair, his thin body under a hospital gown. His face was pale, and he coughed intermittently. Just sitting there made one feel heartbroken. Suddenly, Makoto spoke. Bro, I heard from my wife that they've found a heart for me. Aren't you happy for me? I looked into his black eyes, so bright and innocent, but underneath, there was so much malice. Does he really not know anything? I replied, happy. I smiled and said with a touch of sincerity, I'm very happy. Seeing no reaction from him, Makoto seemed somewhat dissatisfied. He raised his hand casually and said, that's great. You've always had a bias against me. I thought you didn't want me to have the surgery. The ring on his middle finger was very conspicuous, matching the one Willow wore on her wrist. I didn't pretend not to see it. My gaze locked onto the ring, and Makoto quickly took it off, saying, sorry. This is a gift I got for my wife when I went back to China. It doesn't mean anything. My finger swelled up because of the illness, so I wore it on my middle finger. You won't hold it against me, will you? Chapter 5. As Makoto suddenly began to cough violently, Willow came out of the examination room and saw the scene. She quickly rushed over, shielding Makoto behind her, and yelled at me. What did you do to Makoto? He's a patient. Why are you making things difficult for him? I looked at her, whose emotions were fluctuating so wildly, and gave a self-deprecating smile. It turned out that even the calmest and most rational people can lose control sometimes. All because of Makoto's little cough. She didn't even bother to ask the context, instinctively placing me in the role of the aggressor. This was my wife, the person I once loved so much. My heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed by something, suffocating. Makoto continued to cough and said, sis-in-law, please don't be angry. My brother didn't do anything. He just mentioned the ring on my hand. Don't blame him for that. Willow's face darkened further, and she said, the transplant date has already been set. Your little tricks won't change anything. I won't let anything interfere with Makoto's surgery. She thought I was intentionally provoking Makoto's condition because I didn't want to donate my heart, but I didn't explain. There was no point in explaining. Willow would never listen to anything else. I just silently turned around and returned to the hospital room, closing the door behind me. Now, the only thing accompanying me was my design sketches. I loved drawing and designing, and my greatest wish these years had been to see the clothes I designed on the runway. Even just once. Luckily, I received an invitation for next year's fashion show. Unfortunately, I probably wouldn't live until then, so I wanted to finish my sketches before the surgery, at least to fulfill my wish. As I made some adjustments to the designs, the medication began to take effect, and I started to feel drowsy. I casually placed the sketchbook by the side of my bed and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I heard rustling sounds beside me and saw a little boy holding a pencil, scribbling all over my design sketches. The carefully completed designs were now completely ruined. I immediately sat up, grabbed the boy's hand, and scolded, what are you doing? The boy was startled and looked up. It was a face that resembled Makoto's by about 70%. It was Makoto's son, Lucas. He shouted angrily, you bad person. You made my daddy feel worse. I'm going to punish you for him. Bad person. Lucas cried out, his voice sharp like nails scraping against glass. I looked at my ruined work, my blood boiling. I couldn't care less about whether it was a child or not. I yelled sharply, who told you to touch my sketchbook? Didn't your parents teach you that you shouldn't touch other people's things? Lucas cried louder, shouting, help, the bad person is going to hit me. Help, Aunt Lou. Help, Grandpa. Help. Within moments, my father and Willow burst into the room, pushing me aside. They were both strong, and I was thrown back hard against the headboard of the bed. My head struck with a sharp pain, and my vision blurred. Maria, upon seeing Lucas with tear-streaked cheeks and red wrists, immediately turned and punched me twice. She yelled, bad dad, why did you hurt Lucas? Lucas cried uncontrollably, his voice choked with sobs. Lucas saw that this uncle was sleeping, so he wanted to cover him with a blanket. Lucas didn't know what he did wrong, but the uncle was going to hit him. Lucas was so scared. Lucas almost got beaten to death. Hearing this, my father flew into a rage. George, do you have any sense of decency left? How could you lay your hands on a child? I didn't say anything. I lowered my head and felt the sticky blood at my hairline. My father didn't notice it at all and scolded me furiously. Is this what I taught you? Why would you lay hands on a child? My face turned pale. I looked up and asked, if I say I didn't do it, would you believe me? Would you believe me? Chapter 6. Willow's voice was cold as she said, George, stop lying all the time. Everyone can see what's happening. It was as if she was reminding me that this wasn't the time to argue but to apologize properly. I let out a low laugh. I looked at the child who was still crying and occasionally sneaking glances at us. I said, fine, I hit him. After all, no one would believe me anyway. My father, furious, raised his hand. Willow quickly stopped him. I knew she was just worried about my heart being harmed. Once the surgery date was set, I couldn't afford to have any setbacks. Willow pushed my enraged father out of the room, and only she, Maria, and I remained. Her face was cold as she said, "It's just a few pieces of paper. Why are you overreacting? Is it really that serious?" My body froze. A few pieces of paper. That was my work, my effort, the thing I loved. To Willow, it was just a few pieces of paper. Suddenly, I felt a sharp sting of ridicule. I had never realized just how insignificant I was in their eyes. I clutched my chest, feeling a deep, physical pain. It was true, being heartbroken to the extreme could really hurt. Willow's face changed slightly when she saw my distress. She quickly helped me sit up and asked, "What's wrong? Don't get worked up, just breathe. It's nothing. Really, if it bothers you that much, we won't mention it again. Just breathe. I told you to breathe." I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed her away violently and shouted, "Get out, all of you. Just leave." Willow, not daring to provoke me further, turned and left. Her face was grim. That night, after my emotions had somewhat settled, Willow returned with the news. She said, "The surgery is scheduled for 10 days from now." I didn't react. Willow continued, "Originally, I wanted to wait until you got better, but you've been so uncooperative. At this rate, it will only get worse. 10 days from now is the best option." I still only nodded quietly, as if I had accepted everything. Willow's expression softened, and after a brief silence, she said, "I'll be performing the surgery myself. After the anesthesia is administered, you won't feel any pain." I could hear the rare tenderness in her voice. I looked up at her with a pale, frail face and asked, "Should I thank you?" Willow couldn't answer. I was already so thin, my cheeks sunken, and my lips pale, lying in bed, with the last bit of resistance in my eyes. I asked, "Willow, have you ever considered that I might actually die after the surgery?" Willow froze. She stood motionless for a moment, feeling a flicker of panic for the first time, but quickly, Willow regained her composure, and with rationality, she said, "It's already been confirmed. Until the task is completed, you won't really die. So stop trying to trick me with these words." The little bit of resistance I had in my eyes faded completely, turning dull and gray. This was my final effort. "Willow, there is no one in this world who will knowingly let their heart be trampled on, yet foolishly continue to give it away. At least, not me. From now on, I will completely disappear from your life." The room was silent. Willow stared at me, and strangely, her heart seemed to hurt in a way it never had before. But soon, she suppressed the pain. Her rationality told her this was just temporary. Once the surgery was over, everything would go back to normal. She would make it up to George, and everything would be like it was before. George would be revived, and there would still be a chance. Chapter 7. After that, I spoke very little. Every day was either spent sketching or staring out of the window. The last 10 days passed by as if I were just counting down the hours, no longer attached to anything around me. Willow abandoned all her work to stay in the hospital, accompanying me for one test after another. Blood tests, medications, needles piercing my arm with no mercy, yet I didn't make a sound. The endless silence only seemed to make her more anxious. When passing by my hospital room, my father's expression was a mixture of confusion and anger. He asked, "What are you trying to do? Do you really need all these tests for a simple cold? Are you just pretending to make us feel sorry for you?" I didn't answer. My face had grown increasingly pale over the past days, and my body had lost much of its weight. My gaze never once turned toward him. A surge of unspoken anger rose within my father. He said, "You've always been different from your brother. You're scheming, manipulative. Doing these things will only make us hate you more. The sensible thing would be to leave the hospital and disappear from our sight." As he spoke, my father pushed me roughly. Already weak and frail, I lost my balance and fell, scattering the reports from my arms across the floor. My father was startled. He said, "What are you pretending for? I barely nudged you, and now you're trying to get sympathy from your own father." I didn't explain. I gritted my teeth to endure the pain, bending down to pick up the scattered papers. They were all my test results. My father glanced at them, casually picking up one of the papers. He asked, "Why are you doing a heart ultrasound?" He was about to continue looking at the other papers when Makoto's voice came from behind. "Dad." He was in a wheelchair, looking weak, and he grabbed my father's sleeve. "Dad, don't be mad at my brother. He just wants you to care about him more. You've spent so much time with me, so of course my brother is upset. Let him be. I'm fine." As he spoke, Makoto suddenly clutched his chest, gasping for air. Seeing this, my father immediately dropped the papers he was holding. "Poor kid, you're like this, and your brother still doesn't help but pretends to be sick. Why are you defending him? And if it weren't for him, would you even be born with this illness?" A picture of paternal affection, the image of a perfect family, but my heart was already numb to it. Behind me, Willow emerged from the report room. When she saw what had happened, her face changed drastically. She rushed forward, picking up the reports, and without a word, dragged me back to my room. As soon as we entered, a stack of reports was thrown at me. Willow's tone was grim as she asked, "Is this intentional? Did you drop the reports in front of Makoto on purpose, hoping he'd see the contents and feel guilty enough to refuse the surgery? George, how can you be so malicious?" Her cold words hit me like a hammer to the heart. I looked down, giving a bitter smile. "If you say so, then it must be true." After all, it didn't matter what I said. Whenever it came to Makoto, Willow lost all rationality. My family, my lover, even my daughter, everyone only trusted Makoto. No matter how much I explained, it would all be in vain. I silently returned to my bed and asked, "Do you need anything else?" Willow was silent for a moment. Then her gaze fell on the nightstand, on the sketchbook Lucas had destroyed. She said, "Before Makoto's surgery, he has one last wish, to appear at the fashion show as a designer. You're supposed to participate next year, right? Why not give him your spot?" Chapter 8. I looked up in surprise. I asked, "Do you know this is also my dream? How long I've worked for this, and now you want me to give my spot to him? I can't agree to that." Willow furrowed her brows again. She said, "It's just one spot. What's the big deal? Makoto isn't like you. He's afraid of the surgery. He just wants to fulfill a small wish before going under the knife. As his older brother, can't you at least satisfy this one request?" My fists clenched. How could she say this so lightly? As if all my efforts didn't matter. If Makoto wanted something, everything had to be given to him. I said, "I've already agreed to give him my heart. Now, does he want to take my life's work too?" Willow's heart shook. Outside, I heard Makoto's choked sobs. He said, "If you don't agree, I won't have the surgery. The surgery is so dangerous. What if I don't come out of it? I just want to fulfill a small wish. If you can't even grant that, I'd rather just die." My father quickly shook his head. "Silly child, how can you say such things? I promise you, I promise you." After saying this, my father quickly walked over to me and ordered, "This spot will go to your brother." His tone was final, not open for discussion. I refused to back down. "The organizers invited me. This is my hard work." My father's face immediately darkened. He shouted, "Makoto is your brother. Can't you stop being so selfish? Are you trying to kill him on purpose and enjoy it?" I stood my ground. "Fine, fine." My father said "fine" several times in a row before pulling out his phone. He said in front of me, "Don't listen." Fine. Don't even think about keeping your pathetic company. Do you want me to send someone to buy it out now? You care about your precious work so much. Think carefully. What's more important, your company or a single spot? I trembled, staring at him in disbelief. This was my father. He would use my weakness against me, time and time again, forcing me to compromise. My fists tightened. I knew, once my father said something like that, he could actually make it happen. Willow, standing by, also tried to persuade me. "You'll have another chance for a spot next time. Just let him have it this time." I laughed bitterly. I looked at the people in front of me, my closest family, my wife, my relatives, my child, all of them siding with Makoto. I replied, "Fine, I'll let him have it." Then I turned to the others and asked, "Are you all satisfied now?" Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and turned toward Makoto. Only I remained still, tilting my head back, closing my eyes, holding back tears. The light in my eyes slowly faded, until it completely extinguished. Later that evening, Willow brought me a bowl of porridge. It was the seafood porridge I loved, the aroma strong and inviting, but I had no appetite. I lay motionless on the bed. In the trash can, my sketches, which I had thrown away myself, lay discarded. Willow carefully brought the porridge to my mouth, but I didn't respond. I simply turned my head away, coldly. After a long silence, Willow set the porridge down and said, "Then eat it yourself." The room fell silent once again. I looked at the porridge on the table and, without a word, threw it into the trash can. The next day, I saw Makoto waiting in the hallway, his eyes gleaming with smugness. He said, "Brother, what's the use of your talent? In the end, the opportunity is still mine." Chapter 9. Makoto sneered, "No matter how hard you try, it's all in vain. Everything I want, Dad, Mom, and even Willow will put right in front of me. You've never enjoyed this kind of treatment, have you?" He suddenly burst into laughter, a cold, malicious smile on his face. "I wonder, after my surgery, if you'll still have the chance to see me on the runway." The look in his eyes was all too clear. He knew everything. He knew it all. I stared at him coldly and said, "Even if you get on stage, with your level, you'll only become a joke." Makoto's expression darkened immediately. With no one around, his face showed no pretense. He sneered, "Instead of worrying about me, you should be more concerned about your good friend. I heard he's causing some trouble." I turned pale. "What do you mean?" Makoto feigned innocence and said, "You still don't know. Your good buddy Kevin came to me, talking all sarcastic. I just told Dad that I didn't like him. and it seems like Dad's going to take care of him. It might be tricky, but you know how Dad works. He can easily frame him with some tax charges. He won't be out of prison for 10 or even 20 years. I couldn't hold myself back any longer. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face, yelling, "You lunatic. What's your problem with me? Why target my friend?" Makoto laughed carelessly. "Why shouldn't I? You don't have anything left for me to target, so I'll just make things hard for him. You can only blame yourself. You're the one who ruined your good buddy. What does it have to do with me?" Makoto grinned, looking so innocent, yet his words were filled with chilling cruelty. I raised my hand again, but this time, before I could strike, I was forcefully pushed away. Willow arrived, quickly pulling Makoto behind her. She shouted, "What are you doing?" Her eyes were filled with anger as she glared at me. "What has Makoto done to you? Why are you trying to hit him again?" In the blink of an eye, Makoto began to cough uncontrollably. He said, "Willow, it's not my brother's fault. It's just that I spoke carelessly and offended him. I don't mind if he hits me to vent his anger. I'm not in pain." Makoto suddenly began to act as if he was struggling to breathe, pretending to be in extreme discomfort, almost as if he were dying. Willow's face grew even darker. She shouted, "George, have you lost your mind? Why are you doing this to Makoto? Look what you've done to him." But I couldn't care less. I only had one thing on my mind, to call Kevin and warn him to be on guard. I took my phone out, but before I could dial, Willow smacked it out of my hand. She bit her lip and said, "Do you even have a heart? At a time like this, you're still thinking about your phone. Makoto's condition can't handle any more stress." The phone hit the ground. The screen shattered instantly. I picked it up and checked. It was completely dead, unable to turn on. Willow didn't even acknowledge my actions. She grabbed my hand and said loudly, "Makoto's condition is worsening. He needs to have surgery right away." That's when I noticed Makoto was clutching his chest, gasping for air, putting on a painfully exaggerated act. He tightly gripped Willow's clothes, but his eyes were smug, clearly enjoying the situation. It was all a show. I pulled away from her and tried to go to the nurse's station to borrow a phone, but Willow's people grabbed me and held me down, giving me no chance to resist. She yelled, "Do you want to back out now? There's no need to wait anymore. The surgery must happen immediately." They dragged me toward the operating room. I had no strength to resist, so I said to Willow, "I'm not backing out. Just let me make a call. It's urgent." Willow ignored me, assuming I was just stalling for time. I was helplessly strapped to the operating table, several people holding me down. I begged again, "Willow, please, let me make just one call. It's just one call, please." Willow's expression remained cold. "Administer the anesthesia." The cold liquid was injected into my body, and I knew there was no chance left. My eyelids grew heavier, and the world around me went dark. Before I lost consciousness, the last thing I saw was Willow's face, and with a cold, venomous gaze, I muttered, "Willow, you won't have a good end." In the darkness, the cold, mechanical voice of the system echoed in my mind. "Unfortunately, the affection is insufficient. Host's third task has failed. The current body is about to die. According to the host's wish, we have already selected a new target and are seeking an appropriate opportunity for reincarnation." Chapter 10. Beep. The cold alarm from the heart monitor echoed through the room. A nurse's voice rang out, "Dr. Lu, the heart removal was successful." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Willow's hand suddenly trembled, a wave of immense panic sweeping over her. She instinctively looked at the figure lying on the operating table. George's face was peaceful, lying there without a single breath. She had personally removed his heart. Willow suddenly felt dizzy, as though reality was slipping through her fingers. It wasn't until someone beside her nudged her that she snapped back to reality. "Dr. Lu, isn't it time for the transplant now?" That's right, Makoto was saved. Wasn't this what she'd always wanted? After 6 hours of surgery, Willow walked out of the operating room. Wang's father and mother Wang were anxiously waiting outside. Even Maria and Lucas had arrived, all of them concerned about how Makoto was doing. Willow said, "The surgery was a success." Wang's father and mother immediately burst into tears, and Maria and Lucas jumped up in joy. No one asked about George's whereabouts. Inside the operating room, Makoto was wheeled out. Mrs. Wang followed the nurse to the ward, while Mr. Wang stayed behind to thank Willow. His eyes were filled with tears as he grasped Willow's hand and said, "Willow, you're truly a great daughter-in-law. If it weren't for you finding the heart and personally performing the surgery for Makoto, it wouldn't have gone so smoothly. If I'd known, I should have had Makoto marry you earlier. Actually, back then." He sighed halfway through. "Never mind. Forget I said anything. Can you tell me who donated the heart? I'd like to thank their family properly." Just as he finished speaking, the operating room door opened. The nurse wheeled my body out, covered by a white sheet. As the nurse passed by Mr. Wang, the wind from the window blew a corner of the sheet up, revealing a hand with a birthmark. Mr. Wang froze. He asked, "What's this?" He recognized the birthmark. It was George's. Without thinking, he instinctively followed. Willow quickly intervened, blocking his view and saying, "Organ donation is anonymous. It's a rule. Please don't inquire, Uncle Wong." Mr. Wong didn't think too much about it. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. In the hallway, Willow took over the nurse's duties and personally wheeled George's body to the morgue. In the cold morgue, she lifted the white sheet and looked at George's pale face. A gory wound marked his chest, though she knew it wasn't true death. Seeing George lying cold and motionless in the morgue, Willow's heart still twisted as if she had truly lost him. A wave of delayed sorrow washed over her. Willow held his hand, trying to comfort herself as she whispered, "It's okay. You'll come back. You love me so much. You'll definitely come back. Even if you don't want to come back, the system won't let you leave before the task is finished." She lowered her head, resting her forehead against George's cold one, and softly promised, "When you come back, we'll live a good life together, okay?" If it were the old George, he would have gently stroked her face and said, "Okay," but now, the only response was endless silence. Based on Willow's experience, George would return within 3 days. He would inhabit another body and live under a new identity. And Willow was confident, no matter what George's new form was, no matter what identity he took on, if he appeared beside her, she would definitely recognize him. Chapter 11. When Willow stepped out of the morgue, she saw Maria standing at the door. Maria was looking inside, a bit awkwardly asking, "Did Dad die?" Willow replied, "He'll be back in a few days." Maria didn't say anything further and entered the morgue, pulling back the white sheet. Though she had prepared herself, she still paled, her eyes turning red, and without a word, she turned and ran out of the room. In Makoto's hospital room, he was slowly waking up from anesthesia. He touched his chest, looking somewhat confused, and asked, "Am I just like a normal person now?" Willow nodded. Makoto immediately shed tears of gratitude, looking at Mr. and Mrs. Wong and saying, "Mom, Dad, Willow, thank you so much." A happy atmosphere filled the room. Makoto wiped his eyes and suddenly brought up, "Where's George? My illness is cured, and I'm sure George would be happy. I want to tell him." Willow's face changed slightly. Mr. Wong snorted disdainfully and said, "Who knows where he's gone? Ever since you went into surgery, he hasn't shown up." He didn't even care about his own brother. A hint of realization flashed across Makoto's eyes. Still, he was uneasy and asked Willow, "Willow, is my brother angry with me?" Willow didn't know how to respond. No matter how she explained it, George was gone, his identity had died. She didn't answer but instead tried to comfort him. "Just rest, okay?" And then she left the room. That evening, Mr. Wong went outside for a smoke. He saw a nurse cleaning the neighboring room, which was empty. Unable to resist, he asked, "Where did the person in there go?" The nurse shook her head. "I don't know. I'm just here to clean." "Are you a family member? There's a piece of paper left on the bed. You can take it." The nurse handed him a piece of paper. Mr. Wong took it and saw that it was a compatibility test form. The result showed that George's heart was a perfect match for Makoto's. In the cold night, his hand trembled as he held the cigarette. He mumbled, "What is this?" The nurse, thinking he didn't understand, explained, "It's a compatibility test. The donor and recipient match perfectly." Mr. Wong's hands began to shake. He looked over the form again and again, the names George and Makoto written clearly and unmistakably. In that instant, memories of the numerous tests George had undergone came rushing back. He recalled the test results he had found outside the hospital room, the body covered by a white sheet outside the operating room. The wind had blown the sheet up, revealing that familiar birthmark on the hand. Mr. Wong's hand trembled, and the form fell to the ground. Stumbling, he turned and rushed toward the morgue, nearly falling along the way. When he opened the morgue door, he saw George lying silently on the slab, his face drained of color. Mr. Wong stumbled and fell. Willow rushed to catch him, blocking his view, but before she could explain, Mr. Wong pushed her aside and, finally breaking down, asked, "What is going on?" Willow remained silent. He demanded, "You said you found a heart source. Was it George's heart? What have you done?" Willow explained. Makoto's condition was dire, and the heart was hard to come by. Mr. Wong shouted, "So you just let George die, no matter what? He's my son, and he's your husband." Willow looked up at Mr. Wong and replied, "This was the only way to save Makoto. If you were the one who had to choose, would you have made a different decision?" Chapter 12. The morgue fell into silence. No answer was the best answer. Wong's father staggered back a few steps, realizing something. Finally, he covered his face and cried out, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry." He apologized to George's body. Willow said nothing and silently leaned against the wall. After a long time, she finally spoke. "I'm sorry for him. I've already bought a plane ticket to leave. Once Makoto is discharged, I will take George's ashes and leave here. You know, he didn't want to see you all. After saying this, Willow turned and left. Days later, when she returned to the familiar home, Willow still felt a sense of disorientation. After all, she had lived with George for 8 years, and there were traces of him everywhere in the house. On the wall hung their wedding photo, where George was smiling so brightly, so full of life. Willow felt a pang of discomfort and decided to go downstairs to buy something. As she passed by a woman in the neighborhood, the woman asked, "Willow, I haven't seen George around lately." Willow didn't know how to answer and said, "He went back to his hometown." "Why did he go back?" "He told me last time that you were staying up too late and not taking care of yourself, and that I should bring you a free-range hen from the village to make soup for you. I brought the chicken back." "Did he forget?" "It's fine. You can take it." Willow looked at the chicken the woman handed her, suddenly feeling a mix of emotions. "Thank you," she said. She went upstairs in silence. The large house was eerily quiet. She wasn't a talkative person and had always been used to silence at home, but George would always talk to her about everyday things. Most of the time, she found it annoying, but now that the sound had disappeared, she realized how silence could become a kind of torture. In a daze, the door opened. Willow instinctively stood up and said, "George, you're back." But as soon as the words left her mouth, she froze. At the door stood Maria, who frowned and threw her school bag on the ground. "Mom, I'm hungry." Willow, not in the mood to cook, took out her phone to order takeout. After eating a bite of the takeout, Maria put her chopsticks down and said, "This tastes awful. Why is Dad still not back?" Willow knew Maria was picky, but she hadn't expected her to be this particular. "Tomorrow, I'll have the nanny come over to cook. You'll have to eat this tonight." Maria didn't touch her food again, turning and returning to her room. The next morning, Maria slept until noon, and instinctively yelled, "Dad, why didn't you wake me up?" Only when the words left her mouth did she remember that George wasn't there anymore. Maria suddenly fell silent. She took a bite of the dumplings made by the nanny but immediately spat them out. "I want to eat Dad's cooking. This doesn't taste like what he made." The living room fell into silence. Willow didn't speak, and Maria also seemed to understand, stopping her complaints. After a long while, Maria's eyes turned red. She asked, "Mom, when is Dad coming back? Didn't you say he would come back in a few days?" "Yes, 3 days. According to Willow's experience, George would reappear after 3 days. Chapter 13. Tomorrow would be the 3rd day after George's surgery, so they only had to wait 1 more day. Willow comforted her daughter. "It's almost time." As the day approached, Willow felt no joy, but instead began to feel uneasy. During these 3 days, she had been more acutely aware than anyone else of George's absence, and there was nothing she could do. She could only wait passively. Finally, the 3rd day arrived. She had stayed awake until midnight, and with no desire to sleep, she put on some clothes and went out. She had no particular destination, just hoping to run into someone, maybe even George. But from midnight to the early hours of the morning, she walked around her neighborhood and all the places George usually went, but didn't see anyone who resembled him. Her anxiety grew bigger and bigger. It wasn't supposed to be like this. In the past, George had quickly returned after changing identities, and as long as he reappeared, no matter what his new look was, Willow could always recognize him instantly. The sun rose, and Willow, exhausted, finally made her way to the hospital. Makoto had recovered very well. His face had regained color, and he could walk now. When he saw Willow, his eyes filled with joy. "Willow, are you here to see me?" Willow, distracted, looked around the hospital. There were many people, and she was trying to spot George among them. Suddenly, a man who resembled George appeared in her line of sight. Willow instinctively stood up, but before she could approach, Makoto grabbed her sleeve, looking hurt. "Willow, why are you ignoring me?" Willow quickly shook him off and shouted, "George." She rushed toward the man, grabbing his hand, but the stranger, startled, pulled away and asked, "Who are you?" It felt like cold water had been poured over her head. It wasn't George. Willow stood frozen in place, watching the men walk away, constantly questioning, "Where is George? Why hasn't he shown up?" Nearby, Wang's mother hurried over, disapproving. "Willow, what's wrong with you? Makoto just had surgery, and you're acting like this. Do you want him to have an accident?" Makoto immediately defended Willow. "Mom, it's not Willow's fault. She's just worried about my brother. I don't know where my brother went." Wang's mother's face darkened. "Who knows where he went? He hasn't even shown up to care about you since your surgery. It's better if he just stays away." Her words sent Willow into a rage. Her eyes turned red, and she shouted, "Shut up." Wang's mother was startled. It was the first time she had seen Willow like this, and she asked, "Did I say something wrong? Since Makoto's surgery, where has George been? He's just a selfish, cold-hearted person. I should have never had him. It would be better if he never appeared again." Willow's face grew even darker. She clenched her fists and whispered, No, he will definitely come back. The expression in her eyes frightened Wang's mother, who didn't understand what was happening. When they returned home, Maria immediately asked anxiously, "Has Dad come back?" Willow ignored her and went straight into the room. Entering George's room, Willow finally noticed that the framed photo that used to sit on the bedside table was now just an empty frame. The only photo of them together had been torn apart, the pieces lying in the trash can. It was George who had torn it before leaving. Willow suddenly trembled, as if she understood something. She squatted down and took out all the pieces, her hands shaking as she tried to piece them back together. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't put it back to the way it was before. Chapter 14. In the pitch-black night, Willow lay on the floor of George's room, her mind in a daze as if she could see him again. In the afterlife, the system was playing Willow's image before me. The system asked, "Do you want to go back and see?" I hesitated, then appeared by Willow's side in the form of a soul. As if sensing something, Willow looked around. She asked, "George, is it you? Have you come back?" I didn't respond. In fact, even if I spoke now, Willow wouldn't be able to hear me. I just looked at her, somewhat confused, not understanding why she was reacting so strongly. I thought that after my death, Willow would at most feel a little lost. With Makoto around, she should quickly forget everything and stay by Makoto's side. But in these 3 days, she had spent very little time with Makoto. The system asked, "Host, her favorability towards you has reached 100%. As long as you appear in front of her, the task will be completed immediately. Do you want to change the target?" In the darkness, Willow whispered, "I regret it." She gave a self-mocking laugh, her voice choking as she said, "I regret it. I really regret it. Please come back." All she received in return was silence. After a long while, I spoke. Change. I could no longer trust Willow. Moreover, the hurt I'd experienced wouldn't disappear, and the pain in my heart wouldn't fade. Why should Willow be forgiven? A flash of white light appeared, and I knew that my new life was about to begin. I closed my eyes without a shred of attachment. It wasn't until the next day that Willow woke up, disoriented and devastated. Maria, with red eyes, sat in the living room and asked, "Has Daddy not come back yet?" No matter how mature, she was still just a 7-year-old child. From indifference at the start, to anger, and then to sorrow, Maria choked as she asked, "Does Daddy not want me? Does he not want Mommy anymore?" Willow's heart felt as if it had been cruelly twisted. She whispered, "No, that's not true," but her voice was so low, so weak, and so lacking in conviction. At the hospital, Willow went to the morgue again, as it was the only place she could hold on to something. But when she entered, she found it empty. Willow went mad, shouting, "Where is he? Where did George go?" The young nurse, scared out of her wits, trembled as she said, "He's been taken away. They said they're taking him to the crematorium. Just moved him." Willow suddenly went berserk and ran out. Makoto came over, trying to grab her, but was knocked down to the floor in the process. "Willow." Makoto shouted her name. Willow paused, and upon seeing Makoto, her eyes were filled with confusion and pain. Makoto asked, "Willow, what happened to you?" Willow didn't answer. After hesitating for a long time, she turned and walked away. When she reached the hospital entrance, Kevin was there with the funeral home staff, loading my body into the car. Willow suddenly rushed over, pushing everyone aside, shouting, "Get away! Who told you to touch him?" Kevin, with red eyes, glared at her and said, "George is already dead. Do you want him to never have peace?" Willow's body shook. She then shook her head, saying, "No, he's not. He'll come back." She didn't know how to bring me back. She could only deceive herself, thinking that if she kept my body, maybe one day a miracle would happen. Kevin couldn't hold back any longer. He slapped her hard and angrily shouted, "What right do you have to say that? Do you think George is lying here because of me?" He shouted, "And now you're pretending." Chapter 15. Kevin's words were like daggers to the heart. Willow trembled all over, her head lowered as she sobbed quietly, unable to refute anything. Behind her, my mother came over, bewildered, and asked, "What's going on? What's all this fuss about at the hospital entrance?" Only then did my mother notice the funeral home's car parked nearby, with a body wrapped inside. Since it was already covered, my mother didn't realize it was me. She frowned in disdain and continued questioning Willow. "Makoto's feeling a bit unwell and wanted you to check on him. Why aren't you concerned? I even thought you were a good girl and wanted Makoto to marry you." Nearby, Kevin sneered, "Taking your elder son's wife for your younger son. You really are a great mother." The sarcasm in his words was evident. My mother's expression instantly darkened. She said, "You, wait a minute. You're George's friend, right? This is a family matter. What does it have to do with you? Also, how much longer is George going to stay dead? Why doesn't he come out himself, causing this ruckus? Tell him, if he's got the guts, he should die out there and never come back." Kevin's eyes turned red with anger. He then turned to Willow, gritting his teeth as he mockingly said, Looks like you've been hiding things pretty well. My mother didn't understand what he meant. Makoto hurried over from behind, grabbing my mother, trying to get her to leave. He said, "Mom, I'm not feeling well. Can you take me home to rest?" My mother immediately lost all focus on the situation, only wanting to take Makoto away. But Kevin blocked their way. He stood in front of them, tearing off Makoto's fake facade, saying, "Why are you in such a hurry to take your mom away? Afraid she'll learn the truth?" Makoto's face started to pale. He said, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." My mother sensed something was off, but still stood by Makoto's side, questioning Kevin. "What exactly are you trying to say?" Kevin asked, "Aren't you curious where the heart inside your son came from?" Without thinking, my mother replied, "Of course, it was donated by a kind-hearted person." Kevin laughed in disbelief. He said, "Do you need me to remind you how hard it is to wait for an organ donation? Makoto was in the hospital for so long and couldn't get a heart. So how did George, who was just hospitalized, get one? Whose heart is he using?" My mother turned even paler and scolded, "You're talking nonsense. How could I ever go dig up George's heart? Don't make baseless accusations." Kevin turned to Willow and asked, "Is it an accusation? Ask your good daughter-in-law." My mother's face grew even whiter. She looked at Willow, but Willow just lowered her head. Then she looked at Makoto, who was desperately shaking his head, claiming to know nothing. My mother's chest heaved as she continued to refute. "This can't be. How could this be? You're just talking nonsense." Before she could finish her sentence, Kevin pulled her in front of the funeral home's car. He unzipped the body bag, revealing my corpse. My father rushed over, but was still a step too slow. My mother let out a blood-curdling scream, her body going limp as she stared at the person in front of her. "Let go of her," my father shouted as he rushed forward, holding my mother up and trying to block her view. But it was too late. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at the person in front of her. Her mouth hung open, and she couldn't find the words to speak for a long time. She could barely stand, leaning on my father, feeling like something inside her mind had snapped. She muttered, "How is this possible? How could this?" Kevin sneered, "Take a good look. Makoto's life was bought with your other son's life." These words were a direct blow to her heart. My mother couldn't take it anymore, letting out a final, heart-wrenching wail before collapsing unconscious. Chapter 16. Makoto's face wasn't much better than my mother's. Kevin walked up to him, and Makoto, terrified, stepped back. He finally braced himself against the wall. Looking at Kevin in fear, he stammered, "I don't know. I really don't know anything." Still pretending, even now. Kevin almost wanted to tear his face apart, but that would be too easy. He looked at Makoto, speaking each word deliberately. "Do you think you've won? George died because of you. From now on, your parents, your children, everyone will remember this fact. You'll forever be a sinner, never able to hold your head high in front of George, and no one will ever unconditionally favor you again." For the first time, true fear appeared on Makoto's face. His legs gave way, and he collapsed onto the floor. Seeing this, Kevin turned around and pushed my body into the car. Then he asked the lifeless Willow standing beside him, "I've already found a grave for George. You'll never find it. Never show up at his grave and dirty his eyes." Willow seemed to have had her soul sucked away. Standing in pain and confusion, she murmured, "He really won't come back, will he?" She didn't believe it. Willow looked around, ignoring the strange stares of the people around her. She shouted loudly, "Don't you have a system? Didn't it say you couldn't leave until the task was completed? Why, system, come out. Why didn't he come back this time?" The people passing by thought she had gone mad. Makoto, frightened, looked at her and cautiously spoke. "Willow." Willow suddenly shoved him away. Her eyes were bloodshot, staring fixedly at Makoto's chest, where George's heart was beating. It was all because of Makoto. If it weren't for that surgery, George wouldn't have disappeared, and nothing would have happened. She had never regretted anything as much as she did now. Makoto was startled and stumbled back. Willow's gaze felt like she was trying to dig his heart out. Once back in the hospital room, Makoto's face had lost all color. My mother had already regained consciousness, but she was still dazed. When she looked at Makoto lying on the bed, she suddenly shouted, "George." Makoto's face instantly turned pale. He trembled for a while, then whispered, "It's all my fault. I killed my brother. I'll return his heart to him. I'll pay with my life." Saying this, Makoto grabbed a fruit knife from the bedside table, intending to stab himself in the chest. My father hurriedly stopped him. In the past, my mother had always been the one most heartbroken over her son, but now, she just coldly looked at him and said, "George is dead. What are you trying to do this for? Who are you doing this for?" Makoto's body stiffened. Before, my mother had never spoken to him like that. Now, her cold words stung deeply, and he realized how harsh they could be. My father, with red eyes, also said, "This is George's heart. No matter what you do, you cannot harm this heart." Makoto looked at him in disbelief. The two people who had once loved him the most had changed their attitude completely. He had switched places with the old me. In his panic, Makoto saw Willow standing at the door and said, "Willow, do you blame me too? Do you think I killed my brother? But I didn't know anything. Why are you all blaming me?" Makoto's eyes reddened, feeling incredibly wronged. If this were the past, everyone in this room would have rushed to comfort him. But now, no one moved. Willow just looked at him and asked, "You really don't know?" Chapter 17. Makoto was completely abandoned by everyone. My mother no longer had the heart to stay by Makoto's side in the hospital. She spent her days in a daze, and the next day, she was sent home. My father also couldn't focus on caring for Makoto anymore and made an excuse to return to the company. Willow's mental state was deteriorating too. She didn't believe I was dead. She spent all her time trying every possible way to find me, searching for the system, desperate for an explanation. It wasn't until her friend could no longer stand it that they went out for drinks to ease her mind. While crossing a street, they happened to spot a man standing under a street lamp, and every move he made was just like mine. Willow suddenly jumped to her feet, rushing toward the door without thinking. Cars zoomed past the street, and Willow was only saved when her friend grabbed her in time. But when she looked again, the figure was gone. Panicked, Willow didn't stop to think about whether what she had seen was real or just an illusion. She dashed across the street in search of the man. At that moment, I had already become David. I had switched to a younger body and was waiting for my new target in a cafe. This target was also the person I was supposed to marry in this life. The system had told me that this task would be easy, almost like a compensation. But just before the person arrived, a figure appeared before me, leaving me stunned. George Wong. Willow had chased me all the way to this cafe. Seeing me sitting by the window, the longing and emotions she had been holding back came flooding out as she threw herself at me. I froze, then quickly reacted, pushing Willow away. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you." Since I had switched bodies, I hadn't seen Willow, nor had I intentionally kept up with any news about her, so I didn't know how much she had changed. Now looking so worn out, once meticulous and almost obsessive about cleanliness, now she reeked of alcohol. With deep circles under her eyes and tears streaming down her red face, the look she gave me was one of someone seeing a long-lost treasure. I stepped back, surprised. I hadn't expected Willow to be so devastated by my departure. Wasn't she supposed to be happy? She had the chance to be with Makoto now. I couldn't understand, nor did I want to dwell on it. I quickly regained my composure and calmly said, "Miss, I think you've mistaken me. My surname is Jean, not Wong." Looking into my unfamiliar eyes, Willow stood there, stunned. How could this be? She couldn't have mistaken me. From across the glass, she had seen the way I sat, how I drank my coffee, even the small movements I made. Everything was identical to George. How could I not be George? In the time it took for her hesitation, I stood up and left my seat. Willow hurried to follow, but a bodyguard appeared out of nowhere and blocked her. I got into a car, maintaining my cold and distant expression. "Sorry, I really don't know you. Please don't look for me again." With that, the car door closed. The world grew quiet. I leaned back in my seat, rubbing my temples. I asked the system, "How did she find me?" The system replied, "She's been looking for you, going to crowded places to increase the chances of a reunion." It was just a coincidence. I was speechless, then sighed. If it were before, I would have been overjoyed knowing how much Willow cared for me. Now, I only felt that this belated affection was nothing but hollow. Willow only regretted now, but it was too late. Chapter 18. When I returned to the Jean household, as soon as I entered the door, I saw my mother rushing over, worried. "My dear son, I heard from the bodyguard that you encountered a crazy person today. Are you all right? Was it scary? Did they hurt you?" She looked me over carefully, her expression full of concern. Only when she was sure I was fine did she pat her chest and say, "That really scared me. How can there still be mad people wandering around in broad daylight?" Looking at my mother, who was so concerned about me, warmth filled my heart. The system had indeed given me a good family. My parents loved me, and I had two sisters who doted on me. Even the woman I was supposed to marry was someone I had known since childhood, Anna, the marriage partner arranged by the system. Everything was so happy. Remembering our interrupted meeting earlier, I spoke up, "But I didn't get to meet Anna today." She immediately said, "No rush, no rush. I'm very close with Lee's mother. I've already invited them over for dinner, so you'll get to meet her tonight." I smiled. In the systems and her words, Anna was a good person. It seemed this task wouldn't be too difficult. On the other side, Willow, disappointed, returned home and mobilized all her resources to find David. Soon, Mr. Wong gave a reply. He said, "Willow, this person is David Jean, the young master of the Jean family. Why are you looking for him?" Willow stared at the photo of David, her fingers trembling. She said, "No, he's George." Mr. Wong was shocked and thought Willow had lost her mind. He was about to try and console her, but Willow had already left. 3 days later, at the charity gala, I, as one of the invited guests, attended the event. Standing beside me was Anna, wearing a fishtail dress, her smile captivating. We both appeared at the gala, and rumors about a potential marriage between the Jean and Lee families were subtly confirmed. All eyes turned to us, offering praises of a perfect match, but in the corner, Willow stared at the scene, her eyes bloodshot. She didn't believe the man in front of her wasn't George. Downing the glass of wine in her hand, Willow walked toward me. Having drunk a little, my face felt warm, and I was looking for a quiet place to cool off when I saw her walking toward me. The slight intoxication in my brain immediately cleared, and I stood up straight. Willow looked far more composed than she had when I had seen her a few days ago, probably because she had prepared for this moment. When she got close, she politely spoke. "Mr. Jean." I nodded slightly in return. Willow's eyes remained fixed on me as she said, "Mr. Jean looks very much like someone I used to know." The evening breeze cleared my head, and I asked, "Who?" She replied, "My husband." I smiled. In the past, Willow never liked to admit in front of others that I was her husband, because her heart belonged to Makoto. The only person she had ever wanted to marry was him. Now, in front of me, she was admitting I was her husband, but it was too late. I politely responded, "Then you must have mistaken me." Willow didn't answer my question but spoke to herself. He really loved me. In this world, I can't think of anyone else who loved me the way he did. It's a pity that at first, I didn't like him. I married him only because he looked like the person I loved. My throat felt dry, and the wind made my eyes sting. I didn't understand why Willow was saying this to me now. Was she reminiscing about the past? She continued, "But eventually, I really fell in love with him." Chapter 19. Until now, Willow stared at the men before her and finally stopped lying to herself. She said, "At first, I treated him as a substitute, but I really fell in love with him. I can tell the difference between him and others. When I look at him, I no longer see him as someone else." I was speechless. So, what Willow said now was something I had never felt in the past 8 years. Had she ever cared about me? She continued, "So I regret it." Willow's eyes were red, and her voice trembled as she said, "I regret not realizing my feelings sooner. I regret hurting him. Regret doing things that can never be undone. George, I regret it. Please forgive me. Let's start over. I'll make it up to you little by little. Let's forget the past." "Okay," Willow said, grabbing my hand, her eyes red and pleading. I could feel her trembling, but my heart had already been shattered beyond repair. I could no longer bear this belated love. I slowly pulled my hand away and showed her the ring on my ring finger. "Miss, I don't know what you mean. I've already told you. My surname is Jean. I'm not your husband, and I'm already engaged." Willow's eyes widened. She stared at the ring, then instinctively refuted. "Impossible." I asked, "Why is it impossible?" She said, "Because you love me." Willow suppressed her emotions and continued, "You clearly love me. How could you be engaged to someone else? This must be fake, right? You're doing this to make me angry. I know I was wrong. I will never hurt you again. Please, take the ring off." "Okay." By the end, Willow was almost begging me. I couldn't help but feel disgusted. She knew everything. She knew how much I had once loved her, and how much pain I had suffered. But she simply never cared. When I loved Willow the most, all I got in return was endless pain. Now, Willow was standing in front of me, saying all these words. What did it even mean? I spoke. "You say he's your husband, the one who loved you so much. Then where is he now?" Willow froze in place. George was dead. No one knew better than her. He had died on her operating table. He died at her hands. The heavy truth caused her unbearable pain. She couldn't even look at me, let alone beg for anything from me. But she was so unwilling to accept it. After all, George had loved her so much. She said, "I hurt him. Now I regret it. I just want to ask for his forgiveness. Tell me, how can I get his forgiveness?" As she spoke, it was as though she were breaking down entirely. The door to the lounge opened again, and Anna entered, sensing the strange atmosphere. "What's going on?" Seeing her, I immediately gave a faint smile. In front of Willow, I put my arm around Anna and said, "This lady mistook me for her husband. She's asking me if, after hurting her husband, she can still ask for his forgiveness." "Anna, do you think her husband would forgive her?" Anna gave me a long, thoughtful look and then answered, "A woman who truly loves a man would never hurt him. If she has already hurt him, she has no right to ask for forgiveness, because the harm has been done, and time cannot be turned back to undo everything. Those who hurt the ones they love are destined to lack the capacity to love, and do not deserve to be loved in return." Chapter 20. Every word Anna said was exactly what I wanted to say. I turned to Willow and asked, "Miss Liu, do you understand now? Spilled water cannot be retrieved, and a broken mirror cannot be mended. If you truly can't let him go, you should take good care of your child. At least that would be a way to make amends to him." With that, I took Anna's hand and left. As we walked by the dessert table, I hesitated before finally speaking. Aren't you going to ask me something? Anna remained calm, picking up a piece of dessert and saying, when you're ready to talk, you'll tell me. If you don't want to, forcing you won't help. Besides, I trust you. Anna's expression was serious as she added, whenever you're ready to share, I'll be here. Listening patiently, I looked at her and took the dessert from her hand. It was all my favorite flavors. Suddenly, I spoke up. Anna, will you marry me? The wedding date was set quickly. I took another step towards a new life. Meanwhile, the Wang family was filled with a heavy atmosphere. Makoto had been discharged from the hospital, but he wasn't happy. The home was shrouded in a sense of oppression. Wang's mother would often sit and stare blankly at George's photo. One day, she went into George's old room again and started cleaning the few belongings he had left behind. George had very little in the Wang household. When the Wang family had kicked him out, George had packed most of his things. The rest were thrown away, and whatever was left behind was shoved into the storage room. After George's death, Wang's mother retrieved his things from the storage room and placed them back in his old room. She even ordered custom bedding and decorations that George had used, redecorating the room to look just like it did when he was living there, as if he were still around. Makoto saw this and felt a mixture of grievance and frustration. Why should George receive all the love only after he was gone? He approached the doorway and spoke hoarsely. Mom, come downstairs and eat something. Wang's mother, however, coldly responded, I'm not eating. Makoto ran over, knelt down, and looked at her, pleading, Mom, all of it is my fault. Please don't hurt yourself. I owe George, but you need to eat. Wang's mother suddenly pushed him away and slapped him hard across the face. She shouted, it's your fault. Her voice broke as she screamed at Makoto, if it weren't for you, George would still be alive. Still be alive, my George. Makoto collapsed to the ground, unable to believe what was happening. He covered his face, shocked. Wang's mother had never slapped him before. Now, she was hitting him for George. Makoto could no longer control himself and furiously questioned, what does this have to do with me? I wasn't the one who performed the surgery. I wasn't the one who came up with the idea. Didn't you say that my heart disease was caused by him in the first place? So, he gave me his heart. What's wrong with that? Wasn't I your most beloved child? Why are you hitting and cursing me over such a worthless person? Wang's mother's face turned red with fury, and she gasped for breath. Just then, Wang's father, who had just returned home, heard the commotion. He rushed in and helped Wang's mother up, kicking Makoto away as he shouted, you bastard. We really spoiled you. No matter how bad George was, he was still your biological brother. He gave his life for you, and you have the nerve to say such things. Chapter 21. Makoto stared at them in disbelief. He pressed his chest and loudly claimed he was having trouble breathing, just like before, but all he got in return was a cold glare from Wang's father, who said, your condition is fine now. This heart is George's. It's perfectly healthy. Who would believe this act? Makoto's expression twisted completely. In his mind, after the surgery, everything should have fallen into place. The parents' favoritism, Willow's confession, he thought all of it would naturally come to him, but the reality was that he lost everything. Why was this happening? Makoto clenched his fists in frustration, unwilling to accept it. Meanwhile, news of the Jean Lee family's engagement quickly spread through their circles. When Willow heard the news, her eyes went red with anger and sorrow. A woman who usually avoided drinking was now getting drunk at a bar, lying on the floor, murmuring my name and whispering apologies. The warm, happy home she once had was now empty, just a desolate echo. On the day of the engagement, Anna and I appeared side by side, receiving everyone's well wishes. I made my rounds, toasting with guests. After a few rounds, I started to feel worn out, so I turned to Anna, excusing myself and heading to the lounge. As soon as I stepped into the lounge, a figure lunged at me. Dad, it was Maria. At that moment, she was completely different from the aloof, cold girl I used to know. Her eyes were red, and she clung to my coat, as though terrified I might disappear. She said, Dad, don't you want me anymore? Seeing Maria, my heart instinctively tightened. She was my child, after all. I sighed and took out a tissue to wipe her tears, then adjusted her disheveled clothes. I looked at Willow and asked, is this how you take care of her? Her shoes were dirty, her clothes out of season, and her hair looked like it hadn't been washed in days. Most concerning was that she looked so much thinner. Willow seemed pleased that I finally acknowledged my identity, smiling as she said, I'm so useless. I can't do these things right. Maria has always been taken care of by you. She can't live without you. I silently looked at her. I had already guessed Willow's intention in bringing Maria to see me. She was simply trying to use the child to bind me to her, but I had already made up my mind to let go of everything from the past. I gently looked at Maria and said, you're a smart girl, and you're very capable. Even without your father, you'll be just fine. Maria immediately began crying, choking out, No, I don't want that. Aren't you my dad? Why don't you want to take care of me? Why don't you want me? Is it because I didn't listen to you? I know I was wrong. I'll listen from now on. Please don't leave me. Don't leave Mom. She was still just 7 years old. Losing her father was undoubtedly painful for her. I gently stroked her hair. Then I turned to Willow and said, "You shouldn't have brought her here. This would only hurt Maria more." Willow, with nothing but me in her eyes, whispered, "Even if you can't forgive me, even if you hate me for the rest of your life, please don't leave me." I knew that if I didn't clear things up once and for all, Willow would never give up. I spoke softly. "Willow, you're just not used to it. We've been living together for 8 years. It's normal to feel lost at first, but time will heal everything. Makoto is still waiting for you." She snapped. "No, it's not like that." Suddenly, Willow became emotionally agitated, shouting, "I love you. I only understand now. I can't live without you." I looked at her with a bitter smile and said, "Then why did you hurt me over and over again back then?" Chapter 22. You know, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to like me. Willow, you said you've liked me for a long time, and I believe that. But your affection is too shallow. You always keep your feelings for me at 99%, always dangling that 1% over me. I said each word clearly. I'm a person, too. I can feel pain and exhaustion. Why do you think I'll keep giving unconditionally? Willow shook her head in agony, suddenly collapsing on her knees, trembling as she begged. "It's not like that. I'm just afraid. I'm afraid you only stay with me because of the system. I'm afraid that once the affection reaches 100%, you'll leave. I can't lose you. I just can't lose you." The painful memories of the past seemed to drown me once again. I pushed Willow away and shook my head. "But what's done is done. Willow, you've already hurt me so deeply. Don't bother me anymore. I just wanted to start a new life." Seeing the pain on my face, Willow looked as if she had been struck by a heavy blow. She collapsed on the floor in despair, exhausted and defeated. I spoke up. "Today is my engagement party. If you still feel even a little guilty, don't ruin the little happiness I have left." Willow could no longer say a word. She finally understood. She had caused irreversible harm to George, and now, there was no turning back. I disappeared into the lounge. Maria stood nearby, watching all of this in silence. Deep down, she had already realized that she would never have a father again. Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of sadness and grief rushed in. She turned and punched Willow. "It's all your fault. You chased Dad away. Now I don't have a dad anymore." As she spoke, Maria burst into tears. Willow silently embraced her, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. She whispered, "We're all guilty. The sins were inexcusable. George had been right. Neither of them had any right to ask for forgiveness." On the stage, I had returned to my usual self. In my arm was Anna, elegant, beautiful, and graceful. We walked toward the flower-laden stage, surrounded by well-wishers. Willow watched it all through red-rimmed eyes. That night, Willow drank herself into a stupor again at the bar. By midnight, as she came to, her pain intensified. Groggy, she hailed a cab to the hospital, to the very place where she had once performed George's surgery. She lay down on the cold operating table. The chill was bone deep. The scenes from that day replayed vividly in her mind. George had been strapped to this table, anesthetized. How cold must he have been? Tears fell as Willow curled up, a pain settling in her chest. She fell asleep, just like that, until the next morning. When Willow awoke, she heard Makoto's voice outside. "Crazy. Everyone's gone crazy. Just because of a George. They're all against me. What did I do wrong? The heart is Willow's fault. Why blame me? I thought she liked me, and I even thought about being with her. But now she's coming to blame me. My parents are crazy too. They used to hate George, that piece of trash. But now that he's dead, I've become the villain." He was coming in for a follow-up, and the frustration of the past few days led him to find a secluded corridor to vent to a friend on the phone. Every word was heard clearly by Willow in the operating room. Chapter 23. The voice on the other end of the phone sounded nonchalant. "All right, stop pretending. You've got a healthy body now. Isn't that more valuable than anything else? Tell me the truth. Before the surgery, you really didn't know it was your brother's heart?" Willow's heart suddenly tightened. Makoto sneered and said, "I'm not an idiot. There was no donor heart before. Then suddenly one appeared. You don't need to be a genius to figure it out. I just pretended not to know. Otherwise, how could I keep up my image?" Makoto continued. "His life was worthless, and it was already owed to me. The heart being given to me was only right. This whole situation is just annoying." Willow couldn't hold back any longer and rushed out of the operating room. Makoto was startled. Seeing her, his first instinct was to run, but he was grabbed by Willow, who demanded, "What did you just say?" Makoto turned pale, and stammered, "Nothing." "Willow, you must have misunderstood." Willow's face darkened, her voice trembling with anger as she bit her lip. "You knew from the beginning. You knew I was going to take George's heart and give it to you. You knew everything." Makoto's face drained of color, but he still pretended to be clueless. I don't know what you're talking about. Willow saw right through his act and shouted in rage. It was all a lie. You pretended to like me. Pretended to be weak. You've been deceiving all of us. I actually hurt George because of you. I'm so stupid. Willow laughed bitterly, as if she had realized a massive joke at her own expense. Makoto, realizing the situation was turning against him, quickly fled the hospital. Willow stood there, stunned. Suddenly, something clicked in her mind. She hurried to her office. She pulled out Makoto's medical records and started reading through them one by one. Then, suddenly, she slapped herself hard across the face. The past medical records clearly showed that Makoto's heart condition was nowhere near life-threatening. He had been fully aware of his heart issues, yet he still insisted on skydiving, which worsened his condition to the point where he needed a heart transplant. Even then, it wasn't an immediate necessity. In the hospital, he deliberately acted as if he were in excruciating pain and even avoided taking medication to try to worsen his condition, knowing that Willow would eventually help him. And indeed, Willow had found a way to help him, by taking George's heart. When she realized all this, Willow felt like she deserved everything that had happened. She had been deceived by such a person, taking George's heart for him, making him suffer. What right did she have to ask for forgiveness? Now, she had lost everything, the one who loved her, the one she loved, all because of Makoto. What right did he have to use George's heart? With this thought, she left the hospital and headed straight for the Wong family home. At that moment, the Wong house was shrouded in gloom. Makoto had just returned home and found his father sitting in the living room, furious, and his mother's face was as dark as ink. Makoto, feeling somewhat uneasy, asked, "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Wong father stood up, and with a forceful slap, knocked him to the ground. Makoto, still confused, exclaimed, "Dad, what are you doing?" Wong father, in front of him, played a recording, the very one Makoto had made in the hospital corridor. It had been recorded by Willow and sent to Wong father's phone the moment it happened. Chapter 24. Wong's mother's face was full of disbelief, mixed with pain and disgust. She said, "We always thought you were a good child, but it turns out it was all an act. You deceived your own parents and harmed your own brother. You took his life." She pointed at him, loudly reproaching him, her words filled with anguish. Makoto knew he could no longer hide the truth. With red eyes, unwilling to accept the reality, he shouted, "What does it have to do with me? I didn't cause him to die. It was you who drove him out of the Wong family. It was Willow who took his heart. I didn't do anything. I'm the one who's innocent. Weren't you the ones who hated him the most? You couldn't wait for him to die, and now that he really is dead, you're unhappy. What kind of parents do you think you are?" Wong's father's face turned bright red from anger. He clutched his chest and staggered, but Makoto didn't care. With red eyes, he continued, "Since I was young, you've been telling me that George's heart disease was caused by George. He was born to owe me. Mom, didn't you say it would have been better if I had been the only one? Now that George is dead and his heart is inside me, can't you just pretend you only had one child?" Makoto couldn't understand what had happened to his parents. They hadn't been like this before. Wong's mother was stunned by his words, glaring at him with disbelief. At this moment, she finally understood. The words she once said had truly come to pass. She whispered, "It's my fault." Wong's mother fell to her knees with a thud, clutching a photo of George, crying in agony. "I failed you as a mother. I killed my own son." Tears fell from her eyes as if she had aged decades in an instant. When Willow arrived, she saw Wong's father convulsing on the floor and Wong's mother crying uncontrollably. Makoto was standing by, watching coldly. He was about to leave. Willow blocked his path, her eyes red with fury. "Why did you harm George?" Makoto was furious now and violently pushed Willow away. He shouted, "Who harmed him? You. I didn't do anything, and you're all blaming me. But you're the selfish, hypocritical, narrow-minded, and venomous ones. You should thank me. If it weren't for me, his body would have been burned to ashes. At least now there's a heart beating inside me." Willow staggered back a couple of steps and then let out a low laugh. She didn't argue with Makoto but instead mocked herself. "Yeah, I'm selfish and hypocritical, narrow-minded and venomous. I killed George, but what gives you the right to have George's heart?" Saying this, Willow grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it over Makoto's head. Makoto fell to the ground, dizzy. Willow rushed at him, grabbing his throat. The sensation of suffocation took over, and Makoto struggled desperately, but his body, still recovering from surgery, couldn't handle the strain. Soon, his limbs grew weak, and he was unable to fight back. Makoto's defiance melted away, replaced with fear. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean it." In an instant, his eyes widened in terror. Willow was holding a sharp surgical knife in her hand. Makoto's voice trembled in fear. "Willow, I really know I was wrong. Please, calm down." But Willow had stopped listening to anything. In her mind, the voices of Makoto and George intertwined. One cruelly reminded her of how she had hurt the person she loved. The other mocked her, ridiculing her foolish and laughable actions, mocking her self-inflicted misery. When she regained her senses, she realized her hand was warm. Looking at what lay in her hand, Willow was transported back to that day in the operating room. The nurse had asked, "Dr. Lou, is it time for the transplant?" Chapter 25. Without thinking, Willow immediately rejected. No transplant. This was George's heart. She wanted to return it to him, but looking around, she couldn't find me anywhere. She stood up, cradling the heart in her hands, and set off to find George. That night, the police discovered Willow lying in the snow, a pool of blood surrounding her. Wang's father had suffered a stroke and was lying in the villa, while Wang's mother had fainted from the shock. The investigation revealed a living organ donation case that shocked the whole of a city. The news exploded on social media. I learned about it 3 days later. Since the last time I parted with Willow, I had turned off my phone and ignored the outside world. I didn't want to get caught up in the past, but I didn't expect to hear from my father that Wang Corporation had collapsed. After Willow's arrest, the fact that the Wang family had exchanged one son's life for another's could no longer be hidden, and public opinion became chaotic. The hospitals under Wang Corporation closed, and everyone involved was arrested. Wang Corporation's stock prices plummeted and it quickly declared bankruptcy. Wang's father, who had not received timely medical attention for his stroke, woke up to find himself paralyzed on one side of his body, unable to move or care for himself. Wang's mother, overwhelmed by grief, went insane, holding onto George's photo and refusing to let go. The once mighty Wang family had fallen. Lucas, who lost his father, was taken abroad by his mother. Willow was diagnosed with schizophrenia and sent to a mental institution. The once brilliant genius had now become a prisoner of her own mind, the subject of countless discussions and pity. When I visited the mental hospital, I saw a dazed Willow. She had lost much weight, her face was hollow, and her hair had been cut short, no longer the spirited woman she once was. When she saw me, her vacant eyes suddenly focused. She said, "You look like someone I used to know." I asked, "Who do I look like?" She said, "You look like my husband. Unfortunately, I hurt him. He won't forgive me." Never. As she spoke, Willow suddenly laughed and cried, repeatedly saying, "He won't forgive me. Never." As I left, I took one last look at Willow. I thought to myself, our 8 years of love and pain are now settled. I don't hate you anymore. Don't remember me either. Let's both start fresh. When I left, I went to the social welfare institution. After Willow was locked up, Maria was sent there. In the director's office, I donated a large sum of money to the institution and stood by the window, watching Maria downstairs. Unlike the other children, Maria was sitting alone, drawing pictures. The director sighed as he spoke. "The child is still adjusting. Our teachers are very loving, and we have several children with autism here, and they've all adjusted very well." Several children walked up to Maria, asking, "What are you drawing? Can we draw with you?" Maria used to not like playing with others, but now, she hesitated and nodded. I watched her for a long time before saying, "From now on, Gene Corporation will make annual donations to the Welfare Institute. I'll also come to check on this child from time to time. Please take good care of her." The director agreed repeatedly. As I was leaving, the director asked, "Aren't you going to see the child?" I thought for a moment and shook my head. It's better to leave the past behind. Seeing that Maria was doing well here, I was at ease. For the future, let's both look ahead. From now on, live your life well.